I'm back with another tutorial that I wish you could smell. My room smells delicious because I have been doing sample lavender sachets. I'm going to show you a few ways that you can sew these up, a few different sizes, and you will see how incredibly easy these are to do. This could be a great gift for someone that's hard to buy for, your mom. It could be a teacher gift. You could do these smaller ones and make them little baby shower or bridal shower favors, something a little bit different. Lots and lots of ways to use them. So as you're watching this, leave me a comment. Let me know what you're inspired to do with these. First, we're going to need scraps of fabric. These were made out of 4.5-inch squares. They're a bit bigger. They're very fragrant. Or you could do part rice and part lavender if you didn't want them to be quite as fragrant as this set of 3 is. But look how cute it looks all wrapped up in the twine. These are made out of 4x4, and I've stuffed them differently. You can see this one has quite a bit more lavender in it than this one. Totally up to you how you want this to work. Now this one I added a little string to, like if you wanted to put it over a hanger and put it in your closet just to keep things a little bit fresher, or you could hang it in your sewing room. When people go by it and it moves a little bit, it'll activate that lavender smell and just be really pretty. I had sewn it across the top, and now I wish I had sewn across the bottom. You want to do the little hangers, I just did 4 inches. So you only have to remember one number, 4x4 squares, 4 inches of rickrack or ribbon or whatever you want to use. Then you're going to want to get some coordinating ribbons and bobbin threads so that you're not going to have this big white line. The lavender, of course, and I will have a link to where I got this on Amazon. This is the same bag that we made the sleep masks with. It's very compact. So once you pour it out and it fluffs up a little bit, you get a lot more than you realize from this size bag. Now I have pre-cut some of these to 4x4, and one of the things that I wanted to point out was this bird fabric. And if you watch many of my videos, you'll know I'm a big fan of fussy cutting because I design a lot of fabric that has icons on it. Now look at how cute that's going to be because I centered it very purposefully, hence the name fussy cutting. I was fussy about where I cut so that this icon is going to be right in the middle. This one is not fussy cut. It's just I cut 4 inches off the end and that's what I got. So I guess that butterfly is centered, but everything else is just kind of cut off and it's just not going to be as cute. I'm going to show you really quickly how to fussy cut if you're using fabric that has icons that you just really want to be cute in the middle. Now for this, I'm also going to get my rotating cutting mat, and I love this one from Creative Grids. It's a little bit bigger than most. It's 14 inches, so if you are a quilter, this is a wonderful size because you can trim a 12x12 block on it because it's 12.5 inches by 12.5 inches before you put it into your quilt. And if you're working with a 12x12, which is a pretty standard size, it's got to hang off the edges so you can't really trim it on there. So when I was doing the 4.5 inch, I had a 4.5 inch block, and this one I love because that blue is exactly a 1/4 inch. So that's what you'll lose when you sew. So everything that you see is what you will get. So that makes it fun to just move it around. And that's so much easier to see exactly what we will get if we were to do a 4.5 inch. So this is where I really like having this because now I'm not moving my fabric. I'm not moving my ruler. I'm just moving the mat, so everything is going to stay. I'm not going to have to line anything up again, and it's going to be the perfect size. Now, another thing that I would recommend for these, because the lavender is kind of dark, I wouldn't use a totally white fabric. So for example, I wouldn't use this. Basically white with very subtle little sunshines on there, but you can see my fingers through it. So you would definitely see the lavender, which I don't think would be as nice. So I like to stick with prints that have a little bit of color to them. So we're just going to put these flowers on the back of that. Now these flowers are also directional. You'll notice the bottoms of all the stems are down here, the tops are up here. So you want to make sure you put these together so that the top is at the same side. The next step to keep this nice and easy to sew together, and it makes it a lot faster to do a bunch of them, is we're going to pre-press the fold under of this. We're not going to sew anything together, we're going to press first. Now, as I mentioned, I'm not in love with the stitching on the top, so we're going to press on the bottom. So we're going to turn it wrong side up. I'm going to grab my hot ruler. I'm going to eyeball that that's about a 1/4 inch, and then if I fold it down and it hits that line, ooh, I got a pretty good eye. And then you can just take the iron and it goes right on this ruler. If you're not familiar with these, they're amazing because you can measure and press right on there. Then I'm taking my quilter's clapper, which is just a piece of unfinished hardwood. It helps that crease and it helps absorb the heat. And if you were to use steam, it would help absorb any moisture. Now you'll notice it's not super creased because it did have to go around the ruler. So whenever I do that, I come back and I press it one more time and hit it with the clapper one more time, just to get it a little bit flatter. So now we have the bottom folded under, and we'll do the same thing on this one. And we're gonna make sure we're folding the bottom. So however many you're going to do, you're just going to cut all your squares and then you're going to do this step of ironing on all of them. I think these would be fine to do individually if you were doing them for a party favor, like a bridal shower or a baby shower. But if you're giving them as a gift, I think they're cute to do in a little set of 3, tie them with a little bow or the little twine like I had there. And one thing I would recommend is if you are doing this for a party where you're going to be having a lot, I would put them in little plastic bags. Kind of like you would package a cookie, right? Put them in there, you could tie a bow around it, put a little sticker, thank you for coming. Because if you have like 30 or 40 of these sitting out, that scent might be a little overwhelming for some people that are sensitive to that. Be aware of that. It's also that would also be a great way to sew and sell them. Have them packaged so that they stay clean. Maybe have one out so that people can smell the lavender and make sure that they like the scent of the lavender that you have. Now, if you want to do them with the little string or ribbon or whatever you want to use, you're just going to fold it in half and you're going to loop it so it goes in. Match these folded edges. And if you want to, you could baste it on there, but when I'm doing this, I just put it there and I clip that. All right, so we have those pressed and ready to sew. So let's head to the sewing machine. Now I have a few sets that I'm going to sew together and I'm going to chain stitch them, but I'm going to start using a leader fabric, which is just a scrap piece of fabric that I can start on so I don't have to knot. So I just start stitching there, and if anything gets pulled down and get any bird's nest, it's going to be on this piece of junk and not on your project. Then you're going to take your fabrics and put them right sides together, matching the folded edges. And because these are so small, I don't pin or clip them. If you're new, you might want to, or if it just makes you more comfortable, that's fine. The most important is to make sure these folded edges are lined up. If somehow these are slightly off, it does not matter because I don't think anybody's going to be measuring to make sure every single one of these is the same size. I also use white thread when I'm just sewing all of these together, and then I change to the colors when I'm sewing them closed after we've added the lavender. So I'm going to move forward, but when I get onto my project, I'm just going to go back and forth a few stitches to knot that, and then just keep sewing around with a 1/4 inch seam. You can cut that leader fabric off. Now sometimes this bottom part will flip and open when it hits the edge of my needle plate. So I'm always watching to make sure that that stays folded. Then I also use my scissors to hold this down as we get there. I don't want my finger too close to that, and I want to make sure that goes under the presser foot. And now we're going to daisy chain this because we're not going to stop. We're just going to move on to the next one. So now I'm going to take these orange, I'm going to line up the folds and do the same thing. And then I often just cut them off as they start swinging around, since they're not going to just keep going forward like if you're daisy chaining for quilt blocks. The next steps are to clip the corners, flip them right side out, fill them with lavender, and put clips on them so that the lavender doesn't fall out as we head to the sewing machine, or even worse, into the sewing machine. So I'm just going to clip these corners, and I like to do longer angles. Gives a little bit better of a point, but this isn't a project that really requires a strong point. It looks really cute when it's just kind of curved and it's filled in anyway. So I don't even press these. I just clip those 2 corners, turn them right side out, and then just push that corner out with my finger. Then we're going to fill them. This is already pre-pressed under, and we will sew those together. So another idea I had was I think these could be great for like a coworker gift, or, you know, a girlfriend's girls' night gift, or favorite things gift. Maybe part of a favorite things gift. If you love lavender, you could make a set of sachets and a sleep mask for someone, for example. Anyway, let me know in the comments what you're thinking. Okay, I'm gonna put this piece of fabric underneath. Lavender falls, we can then just funnel it from there and it won't get onto my mat. I do think this smaller size that starts with the 4x4, so it ends up about 3.5 by 3.5, is a good size if I was going to be making a lot of them. So if I was going to be making a set of 3 for like 5 of my girlfriends, I would do this because it's going to be still a great gift and it's going to take a lot less lavender. It's amazing how much less you would put in something this size than this size when the original square is only a 1/2 inch difference. It doesn't sound that much, but it's a pretty significant difference. All right, so fingers crossed. And then you can decide how much you want to fill them. Think about 1/2 to 3/4 full is a good amount. It just really depends how fragrant you want it to be. And then if they do start to lose their fragrance a little bit, you just shake them and it will reactivate the lavender. Then I'm just going to pinch these closed and add some clips. I usually do one on the end and one in the middle, and then I'll start sewing here. So I'm not going to put one there. I'll get these all filled and then we will go sew them all closed, which is going to require a few thread changes. Now, because we did press these and then sew them, you do need to be careful when you're sewing them closed to make sure that that seam doesn't stick out. Just kind of make sure it's tucked in there. But it's much, much faster to do that pressing before you even sew this together. Okay, so we have all 5 filled and clipped. Let's head back to the sewing machine. So now there's going to be thread changes so that I get everything coordinated. First, I have yellow on top and a yellow bobbin thread. For this one, that is yellow on both sides. And because we don't want a knot, I'm going to be pulling up the bobbin thread. So I put that down, hold this thread, foot down, foot up. Give that a little tug, grab that thread, and push it back. Then I can just go forward and back a few stitches. And this is just going to make sure that neither of these threads are going to get pulled down and create a big old bird's nest knot. Now you also want to make sure you have your lavender away from the edge. You want this just to be fabric on fabric. You don't want any lavender in your sewing machine or in your stitches. So now I'm going to change my top thread to blue to match this and keep the yellow on the bottom, or the bobbin rather. We have 3 more with blue on the top and they all have green on the bottom. So I'm just going to change the bobbin thread. I like doing the daisy chaining. It saves a lot of time, and as long as you clip those threads really close to the edge, I don't think anyone is going to know that you did it. All right, that's a wrap. So first let's look at these with little hang strings. Which way do you like it better? With it sewn across the top or sewn across the bottom? I definitely like that because if you're going to hang it up, it's going to be less noticeable with the stitch line down there. But either works if you forget and do it that way as well. Then these remind me a little bit of the bean bags, except they would be very light. Children would be very disappointed in them. And then we did the 2 different sizes. So you could do little piles. We could do a set of 2, a set of 3. You could do all birds. I don't know, I think it's kind of fun to do the mixed colors, makes for a fun selection. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Make sure that you subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any more easy sewing projects, fabric scrap projects, quilting for beginners, or ideas to sew and sell.